start up the stream.
Raymond, you wore that shirt last night. You are an outfit repeater.
Oh my
And
god.
maybe he's never taken it off.
Oh, I did.
Maybe he picked it up off the floor and put it back on.
Uh-huh.
Jerry knows my life.
Or maybe a Mr. North American Cub shouldn't be questioning a Mr. North American Bear.
Oh, shit.
The shade is already being thrown, and this is just pre-show.
And maybe 2017 is just trying to pay attention to 2016, so...
Oh my god. Fan. All right.
2015 sure fucking has no shirt on to start with, so...
So see, we're progressing.
That's right.
Naked, old shirt, new shirt that's never been washed.
So
Like,
should we
so
get-
new, and it hasn't even
Hey, Damon.
entered the once.
Yes.
You ready? Because it's about to start.
Yes. Come on. Let's just get this going.
Is that your Burt's Bees?
It's my Burt's Bees.
I think it is.
Peppermint.
I'm about to click the button. Are
I'll
we
go for
ready
it.
to click the button?
Yes.
Yes, we're ready.
All right. It's May 21st, 2016. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
And Chester.
This room is a pigsty, and you're a dirty pig boy.
And that makes me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
And welcome to Comes Out Loud, the Bear Podcast. Episode number 416. People are cracking up. I played the wrong intro music, but that's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine here. And we have four, count them, four guests. One of them white for some strange reason can't get his video, but he's pretty
That's
looking.
okay.
So we'll start with him. Up in the upper left for me, over there, is Brady. Brady, welcome to the show.
Hey.
We've got right next to between Gary and Chester is Chess.
Hey, what's up?
And next to Damon
okay
is Ray.
I'm okay with that too.
Hey,
Hey, yeah, you were looking the wrong direction. Damon's the other way, but that's okay. There you go. Unless you were trying to say hey to Miss Tammy.
Hey.
Yay!
Should we all say
We got all these
hey?
people.
I know. A lot of people. We got some continuing conversation based off of some recent things we had from a long time ago. But first, we need to go into this. Excuse me a moment. I think my butter's finished. I've been doing some farming on my iPad while I've been down during my unemployment phase. Hopefully, I will have had a couple days of work, but right now I'm like playing Farmville 2 Country Escape on my iPad. Like,
You're playing
a lot.
Farmville?
Yeah, but not the
What?
Facebook Farmville, but the iPad Farmville.
I don't see the difference.
They are two different games. This is Farmville 2 Country Escape. That's Farmville 2.
Cool.
It's weird. I mean,
So
I've been
when you
farming.
said you were gonna get butter, you meant in Farmville?
Yeah, just
You're making butter?
butter. Oh, you guys can't see it, but the audio.
That's what I was thinking, David, as he's just sitting there churning away.
Yes, little Miss Country Crock, you churn your butter.
I'll churn your butter so hard. Anyways,
Oh, goodness.
so
Oh, yay.
so
For
that's
butter.
my additional. Of course, WoW and everything. At the point of recording, it's still. I'm still unemployed, but I should be employed or have my first day by the end of the week, from my understanding. So, or maybe next week. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yay.
Dan?
So, yesterday, timey-wimey, check that on the bingo card. I went with my partner Jim to celebrate his cousin's, I don't know, a cousin of his, or a relative of his, 91st birthday. I met her a couple years ago, and her name's Mary, and she's super awesome, and she's an amazing woman, and I love her to death. But it was her 91st birthday, and they had all the family over, and it was a really fun time. I ended up playing poker with with the family. It was a $20 buy-in, and it was pretty good. I did pretty well. 5th place at a table of 8, so yay. And then after that, we went to see a college friend of Jim's we had for dinner with him and his partner, who recently moved to Dayton, Ohio. And they've been settled in for about a year, and we've been trying to get together with them, so we finally took this time to meet up. It was a very nice dinner at a really great seafood restaurant, but it was a good time. So yeah. Chester?
I've been listening to a lot of new music lately. Mainly the new Chainsmokers album, which I have right here.
Nice.
And the other night, my friend Matt came over to play games with us, and he asked to put some music on the house speakers. I said, sure, go ahead. And there's this guy singing about Wizard of Oz, but it's like very modern hip-hop type Wizard of Oz. And I'm like, what is this? This is pretty great. And then he's like, oh, this is Todrick Hall's new album, Straight Out of Oz. So I'm like, this is awesome. So I have listened to that like 9 times between now and like Wednesday.
Wow.
It's just an amazing album. And it's similar to Beyonce's Lemonade, where he does a video, and the video tells a story. And I've got the links on the doc, so you can click through to that. So that's been me. Nothing exciting.
Hey, music can be fun.
It can be.
Mm-hmm.
Gary?
I think for the first time in years, I don't have much to say. I feel like I'm living in a weird same shit, different day on loop. I mean, the weather's not drastically changing. There's nothing big necessarily happening. While we are usually our week out ahead recording, I do want to say this will not make sense later on to people, but happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, including Miss Tammy, our guest, who's here with us today.
Aww.
Aw.
Yay.
That reminds me.
But yeah.
Call my mother later.
So yeah, that's it for me. Nothing much really. Chaz, I think you've been very busy though.
I have been busy. I've been fucking moving. And it's different from regular moving. because of the length of the moving. I took a new job in the middle of March, and my husband is still on contract with the university until the end of May. And as a result, we've had to spend several months apart. I had theorized that maybe by, kind of spreading out the pain of moving,
Mm-hmm.
it would somehow like make it easier to deal with. And no, that's not the case at all. It's fucking horrible. It has just prolonged the pain and made it shitty to have all of my stuff in like 3 or 4 different places. And you wake up and you're like, I need that thing. Where the fuck is it? Oh, it's in a tub. But which tub where?
Is it here or is it still back home?
Yeah, it's been fucking horrible. Yesterday, I had the help of my brother and a very large trailer, and we moved the bulk of all of our big furniture and shit like that up from Murray. So, in spite of all the stress and ridiculousness of it, the good news is I still love my husband. We haven't killed each other through all of this ridiculousness, and so. Hopefully, now that I'm still living in the new place, he's still in Murray until the end of probably the end of June. But at least in the short term, my life is going to get simpler because now instead of my shit being in 4 places, it'll only be in 3. And we'll also eliminate the hour-long commute that I was still dealing with to work every day. So that's all that's really been going on with me. Other than Claw, I went to Claw a couple weeks ago.
Hey, Chess, I have a question since you just mentioned Claw.
Okay.
Regarding our little bingo card here.
Yeah.
Do we get to cross this off if somebody else says it, or do we have to say it?
Well, the thing is when I was jokingly creating that thing, the 4 columns that, kind of have you guys attached to them, it's when you all each individually say the thing or talk about the thing. So,
and then the middle column is for if anybody, I guess.
Yeah, or just anybody. That middle was just kind of whatever.
A free for all.
Yeah.
This would also make a great drinking game.
Well, okay, so
here's
the story behind that fucking bingo card. So I had, because of work shit, stopped listening to most of my podcasts or anything like that for like a long fucking time. And so I went back because I'd run out of audiobooks for gym time. I went back and downloaded everything since Midwest Bear Fest 2015.
Holy crap.
And I listened to them all. Pretty much right in a row. And I had only finished the entire year plus of podcasts sometime last week. And so just hearing over and over the same stuff, it's funny. But it's also, there's certain little things, and some of it I know you guys aren't aware of. Gary dropping the per se, and what was Damon's phrase? He's he does so, and what's the other one on there for Damon?
Aspect.
As it were. He attaches as it were to shit. Or then there's the big 10-minute plus silence from Jeff. So
I will tell you this: there will be a free space this episode, I think.
But it was really, I don't know. It was just for fun. It wasn't anything serious. So anyway, that's where that came from, because I listened to all these fucking episodes over and over. So
nice. Well, thank you for being a avid listener.
Absolutely. Miss Tammy, what have you been up to?
Traveling a little bit. I've been traveling around doing some emceeing for some contests, some judging for some contests. I did a Midwest Olympus contest. I was the MC. Indiana Leather contest. I did some MC work, and then I went to Chicago and did some judging work, and then I went to Claw, and I've been doing some planning for Mr. Kentucky Leather contest that's coming up in July. Yep. And working and taking care of my mom and enjoying my 2 little cute grandsons.
Aww.
Making sure Hammy stays out of trouble.
Yeah, making sure Hammy, although he's walking around the house wearing what looks like a cape right now, and the front door's open, so somebody looks in and they're going to see the pig walking around in a cape. Surprisingly, though, I don't get a whole lot of solicitors at my front door because Hammy likes to lay at the front door in the sun. It deters a lot of people.
What is that? Oh, that's a. Is that a
pig?
Pig?
What is
this? To the next house.
Now, on Halloween, we have to buy a lot of candy because we have the most trick-or-treaters ever. Because Hammy likes to stand out on the front porch in hopes that he may possibly get a Tootsie Roll or something. Yeah. So we have I don't even know how many kids come and trick-or-treat at our house. And we live on a court. So we're at the top of the court and the kids come up to the house, but their parents usually wait down on the actual street, and they look up and they're like, "Is that a pig?" Oh my God! So then all the parents come up, and then a couple years ago we had this one little boy that came up, and he was so cute, and then he goes, "That's a weird looking dog, mister," to John. I was like, "Well, honey, you're special. That's not a dog."
Love it.
Wow.
So that's what I've been doing to keep busy.
Nice. Ray?
I'm actually taking time from traveling. I just finished 2 months of traveling every weekend since March. So I'm taking time away from traveling to kind of take care of myself, focus on the house, and prep for a contest that is happening in late September, early October. So enjoying Louisville for all that it is.
Yeah.
Nice. And Brady, what's been going on with you?
Travel.
Mm-hmm.
I have been traveling straight since December, and this is my busiest month. I am leaving for Texas in 2 days. That's going to be fun. And then when I get back from that, I'll have a break and then leaving for Orlando the week after.
Hey, where you'll get to see me.
Yes, and we're staying in the same room.
Hey, where you get to room with me.
Yes. This is going to be fun.
Orlando.
I promise not to get you drunk.
Wait, what?
No, let me rephrase that. I promise I will do my best to get you drunk, but I won't take advantage of you if you are.
Okay, get me drunk. You can take advantage of me because this is consent of me giving you to do that. Just please do not take any pictures of me making hearts like Ray did, and then making a meme of it saying, "Hey Brady, how big's your asshole?"
I don't know. Why don't you feel it and tell me?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh.
Oh,
Well, on that note.
wow.
Could someone officially, and I don't want to be in charge of this, make track for a new bingo card? And I think we need one of the boxes to be when someone does a smooth, beautiful use of the topic. That's like a bonus or something. They get extra points or something for that, because I thought Brady did a really great job of that, despite how it got derailed.
During any of the other segments of the show, when we're not doing the actual topic, if somebody references the topic, Tumblr references, I don't think necessary.
Be the back on task award.
Nice.
Anyway. But before we get into that, we've got actually two and a half more segments, or 2 segments here. So we need to do this. Okay, this is a first. I'm actually asking a guess. Brady, what did you do?
I want to start this off by saying I was not drunk.
Just to be clear, he wasn't
Just
drunk.
to be clear, I was sober. So last night was the Mr. Kentucky Leather send off for Jody for IML. We were in Louisville at, what was the place called? I'm not sure exactly what it was called.
You.
You're at the C2.
Okay. That, and I was talking with Pup Alice, and we got into like a serious conversation, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but we got really excited, and I go to do a death drop, or just like pretend to do one, and I just kicked my leg up, and I totally just like kicked somebody right in their knee. I didn't even see them there. And like and the thing is that they were about to just start tying him up in rope, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And just like had this moment of freak out. And of course, everyone around me is laughing, but I'm like, I just kicked this person I don't even know. I should just go ahead and leave. Here's all my leather. I'm done.
Oh,
I must have missed that.
It was in the back corner, like where those two staircases were leading up.
Oh, okay.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I need to have more awareness of my surroundings before I decide to do a death drop.
Yes, yeah. Yes, you should. Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Although, congrats for attempting to do a death drop.
I call it. It would probably would have looked more like a death flop than more of a drop.
Yeah. So it's so after that, it's like. Golf claps.
Nice.
Anyways.
Golf clap.
All right. So with that done, we actually don't have a segment because I'm like putting this in now. It's our commercial. So you can't see it, but Brady, as well as what you can see, Damon and myself and Gary, I believe, are all wearing some COL swag. I have a Texas orange shirt. Looks like Damien, you got a red one, or did it have a specific?
It's a cardinal. It's the cardinal color. It's one of the darker colors.
Brady, I can't see it, and maybe we should like get a picture of it so that we can put it on the website. What color shirt do you get, or what do you have?
It is the gray ringer shirt. It's got 2 black rings around the edges of the shirt, and it's got the big COL logo on it.
Sweet.
And Gary, you have a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I put my my hoodie on, which was the very first thing I got. It's the chocolate brown hoodie with I call it chocolate brown or milk chocolate, whichever your preference is, with the logo on it. So the hoodie is actually super comfy. I tend to wear it all the time, which is now a problem, which is why I have to buy more, because like I need something else to not wear all the time.
So you can get any of these, including the brand spanking new COL buttons.
Button. Who's got the button?
On our Zazzle store at zazzle.com/cubsoutloud. We got underwear, we got mugs, we got backpacks, messenger bags, poker chips, temporary tattoos, playing cards, watches.
All this and more.
You can get sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs of all 3 of our logos, our current one, our last one, and the original Cubs Out Loud logo, which is made by Joss. Usually there's some sort of discount code. Right now they well, I shouldn't really say what the code is right now because that'll probably change by next week when the show gets live. But you can get all those. 2 ways to get there: Zazzle.com/CubsOutLoud, or you can go to CubsOutLoud.com and just click on the COL merchandise link right at the top of the page. It'll take you right there. So check it out. Also, because now we're streaming on YouTube, my machine is like 7 years old, and I really need to upgrade it. Otherwise, I'm kind of afraid of how this that it will die sooner than later. Right now, because of what we need to do for the streaming. So I need to upgrade I really need to upgrade my machine. I've been unemployed for almost 3 months now. And I need some help getting that machine. I got a GoFundMe at gofundme.com/COLstream. I got the link below here. So I'd appreciate it very much if anyone can help out. We have one donation now, and hopefully we can get some more. That's that's GoFundMe.com/COL stream. And that is our commercials.
Nice.
Jerry?
Yes.
Tossing it to you.
Take the.
So this particular episode is another one in our Let's Talk About Kink ongoing series, and we're actually going back to a previous topic that was in COL416 that was nearly 2 years ago, and it's about consent and respect. We had a very good discussion back then. Some of our guests were actually on that one at that time, and it stemmed from attending CLAW 15. And unexpectedly, this year, I think nearly all of us were at CLAW 17 this year, and I don't know like how to say it, but after the event was over online and social media, there was lots of talk about the fact that some things had happened allegedly, and that the how do we deal with that, not only in our personal lives, but if you're at an event, if you're at that type of an event, those type of things. So we decided to kind of bring this back around and have more discussion about this exact idea. What is considered consent? What is respect? And how do we, make sure that we're doing what's best for us as well as the people that we're having experiences with? So that being said, Chess awesomely put together some of what our outline is going to be of things that we're going to talk about. And to start off with, we were going to go over describing what these concepts are as far as terms and the issue of self-awareness with that. Chess, you want to start us with the first part?
Yeah. When you say I awesomely put together an outline, really I just sat down and just started typing the shit that jumped in my head, trying to organize my thoughts about the concept. And so, anybody who wants to like jump in and like flesh something out that I said or respond to something, that's perfectly fine. I tried to make sense of it for myself, and in doing so, I do that with outlines a lot of the time, and so that's what I did. Also, even though, as Gary mentioned, some of the discussion was spurred by stuff that happened or is alleged to have happened at CLAW, we didn't really want this episode, I think, to like be about CLAW or limited to that sort of thing. And so we're not really here to talk about, specifics about that event or anything related to it, because the broader concept is applicable to any leather event. It's also completely applicable to bear runs. I know that some of us are friends with Smashy the Floof. And he did a shirt not too long ago that raised a big issue and question about consent for like in the bear community. Like, is it okay to like hug people? Like some people don't want to be hugged or touched, and it's such a common thing in bear circles that that issue can come up.
Yeah, I was actually. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was at CLAW this year, and I'm generally very friendly and very open to people, and I will give hugs because that's how I greet people. And I actually ran into someone who did not want to be hugged, and we literally had this very awkward moment where I'm like, oh, and I realized that he's kind of withdrawing away, and I'm like, oh, let me just stop and put my hands down. And it was just one of those things where even though you automatically think, oh, it's just a hug, people have boundary issues, people have personal space issues, and you should, even just a hug sometimes can be invading that space, and you should, usually there's an unspoken kind of thing going on that could indicate they're okay with it, but you shouldn't always assume that everyone's going to be okay with it. Not everyone's going to want to be hugged, not everyone's want to be kissed. So
right. And I think that you're getting right at the heart of like the beginning of my outline, which was, kind of asking the question of, what is consent and what isn't. And so generally, like speaking, like we all have a sense of what consent is, but you can pretty much sum it up anytime as, yes, I want to be doing this thing with you, whatever it is. So in the case of like our hug example, it's like, yes, I want to be hugged. And you can say that out loud explicitly and give permission, or it can be something that if somebody goes out with their arms, stretched out like, hey, give me a hug, big guy, some people, respond in kind, and then and that's going to work for consent. And so that's the general rule. If you're trying to go, is that consent? Is it not? If the person is saying, yes, I want to be doing this, either especially explicitly by giving permission or very clearly by something implicit, then that's also totally fine as far as consent is going. The other thing that was first in my mind was who can give consent and who can't.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that frequently comes up when we're talking about this question is things like intoxication. Because if somebody is, we sometimes talk about alcohol as a social lubricant, a way to people kind of loosen up, or you also see people who, if we talk about the stereotypical frat boy, like, yeah, let's lower some inhibitions here, and talk the girls into, taking off clothes, or let's get the girls to make out with each other, or whatever it is. So intoxication is kind of one of those gray areas where you really have to be careful. If somebody's too drunk to give consent, you sure can't presume that what you're doing or what you want to do with that person is okay, because if they're out of it, that's going to be no bueno. They're just not capable of giving you consent. One of the other kind of issues that I saw as kind of a gray area was related to who can give consent is like youthful appearances. Some folks are older than they look. Some people are younger than they look. And if somebody's underage, by definition, they really can't consent to most of the shit that we're talking about in terms of like at events and runs. Anything sexual, it's a no-go for most states.
Yeah.
So that was the first kind of question I had. I didn't know if anybody else had any other thoughts about, what they think about when they think about consent, and like what it is and who can and can't give it.
One additional thing I might add is that
I don't really have any questions on consent myself. I believe that I'm a very level-headed person when it comes to consent. I am the type of person that will, if I'm at an event and I will ask them, have you been drinking? This has nothing to do whether I'm about ready to do a scene with somebody or I'm just taking them back to my room to play with their dick. I always ask them, have you been drinking? And how sober are you? Because if they're sloppy drunk and they're stumbling on the way to the room, all bets are off. I'm not doing anything. And if they say, I've had one or two, my next question usually is, are you able to drive? If we needed to go somewhere, could you drive right now and feel safe about it? And if they say yes, then I'll go ahead and play with them. But if they immediately say no, then again, all bets are off. When it comes to doing a scene with somebody, then I have to start questioning myself on, is this person being truthful because they really want it at this moment? Or is it the alcohol that's talking or something of that nature?
Yeah.
So if it's something that deals with any kind of bondage or any kind of play where safety is a huge factor, if they've had any bit of alcohol, I just tell them, no, we're not going to do it.
Miss Tammy, did you start to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that you also might want to consider sometimes is that we do have people that are in our circles of friends and that we play with or that you encounter that you may want to have some type of a contact with that struggle with mental illness.
Sure.
And, you know, there are times, particularly if people have bipolar disorder, that they may be in a much more manic phase and being very impulsive with their decision making. They may be a little more hypersexual or making some choices that are not necessarily in their best interest. They may be able to, may be competent and legal in terms of giving consent, but you also have to sort of, if possible, kind of take into account maybe some of their behavior surrounding if you've been around them for that evening, or if you know them over a period of time. Have they been recently making poor judgments and doing things that may put them at risk to make a decision that they may regret at another time? And, you know, another thing is alcohol is obviously not the only substance that can cause altered mental status and poor choices, decision.
Tammy, you bringing up about a person's mental health makes me want to ask the question, what do you think is like one or two items that's a good guideline if you kind of know, or this is probably more tricky, if you've been told but not by the person that you're with? Like, I don't know how you would approach a person. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a really delicate kind of area to talk to someone about that.
If you think that they're not making good decisions, is that what you mean?
Yeah, based on, say, for example, this is a hypothetical. Someone tells me that someone I'm interested in doing something with, that they have a bipolar disorder, and like, it's conjecture, you know, it's rumor, but then it's like, how do you balance that in the moment if you're with them and you're not sure if they're in a manic state or not? Like, is that anything that you can really kind of bring up to discuss?
Well, generally, if somebody truly is manic, it's not something that you're going to have to dig for. Generally, there are some outward appearances or characteristics that you'll see that you'll wonder if they've just drank an entire pot of coffee or had about 20 Red Bulls. Generally, their thoughts are a little more disorganized. They kind of go on a little bit of a tangent sometimes from one topic to the next to the next. It can sometimes be difficult to follow their train of thought. Their speech might be a little pressured and, loud. They may be a little expansive in their thoughts and how they talk, making other decisions about maybe overspending money or going to lots of places or dancing a whole lot or listening to really loud music. Now, those are all things that we all do. But for somebody that's truly on a real high level of mania, it's hard. They can't shut that down. So they tend to not sleep and make very impulsive decisions. And a lot of those things can be related to safety and certainly judgment. They might spend a lot of money that, that they really don't have, or, start hooking up with tricks or making really poor decisions regarding their safety when you know that that's not necessarily in their best interest. So usually it's something that you would notice on a level of just readily interacting with them. Now, just because somebody has a diagnosis of bipolar disorder is certainly not a reason to hesitate to interact with them or consider playing with them or whatever. But a discussion about, one of the things that I always try to encourage people to do is, if you're planning on negotiating and doing some things, one of the things at a minimum you should do is always at least ask people what kind of medicine they take. And sometimes that's a good segue into, what do you take that for? And, not everybody that has a form of mental illness of some sort takes medication, but that's also a good way to just kind of segue into, well, what do you take that medication for, and how do you feel like where you're at this particular time? Do you feel kind of low? Do you feel high? Do you feel like you're in the middle? Do you feel like you're going up and down? Does this feel like a good time to engage in this type of play for you? Does that answer your question a little bit?
It does. I think that it's helpful that you say, that there's ways to begin a conversation without making it awkward. And I guess that's probably something that a lot of us don't think about. I know that unless it's potentially going to be about a scene, like, and this is forecasting to the future, I wouldn't think of saying to the person that I'm about to, have a moment with, so what's your rundown? I think
Well,
that,
let me give you an example of somebody that's really kind of commonly known to most people. I don't certainly think it's calling anybody out or saying anything libelous about anybody. Everybody knows that Robin Williams, prior to his death, had a long-standing history of kind of struggling with some depressive and manic issues. If you've ever watched him on stage or just in conversation with people sometimes, have you ever just watched how he almost completely takes over an interview or an interaction with someone? He just constantly is talking. Now, he's funny. It's great. But his speech is generally just pressured, and he jumps from one topic to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Those are the types of behaviors that you see with somebody. And, I'm not talking about just the Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire. If you've ever really seen him on stage or on an interview or something like that, where it's just almost amazing. It just goes from one topic to the next, to the next. And he's humorous, but that's kind of what somebody would look like. But, again, you have to gauge how in-depth you're going to get with someone based on what the level of interaction is. And, that varies from person to person.
I was going to say, as far as the how to have that conversation, that kind of segues into the next topic that was on the outline, which, how to generally make sure that what you're doing is consensual. And that kind of clarity of communication, like, even though it seems like we're talking about Gary, like, I'm about to have this intimate moment with somebody, how do I bring up, hey, are you, like, cool to do this? Are you a weirdo? Or do you have issues? Those, of course, are not the right way to do it. A lot of times what I'll do is, before we get down to business, I'll be like, hey, I'd really like to talk to you about something. And if it's a scene, like, I'll be like, hey, let's negotiate. Thankfully, like, most BDSM type interactions should have some kind of explicit negotiation out front. But for more sexy times that maybe are a little more lust driven and passionate and not necessarily much beyond the animal instinct, that's when you get into other things like making sure that you're getting feedback from somebody. Like, do you like this? Oh, yeah? How does that feel? Does that feel good? And those sorts of, even if you're not necessarily doing it all up front, you can still ask questions that still can be part of sexy time and be getting that continual consent back from somebody. Through just literally explicit communication.
I'm glad that you brought up the feedback right then, because that is something that people seem to forget, is that consent has to constantly be reminded that it's there for both parties throughout whatever you're doing, not just right off the bat. Hey, do you want to go back and have sex? And because that person says yes at that moment doesn't mean they're going to continue to say yes throughout. At Drenched Fur, I walked up behind Brady and I put my hands on his shoulders and I immediately went down and bit on his neck. At that moment, he could have said no. He didn't. I bit harder. He continued to give positive feedback to me in nonverbal communication that what I was doing was okay and he wanted me to continue. And it continued until I felt that it was enough and I didn't receive any more positive feedback from him.
Right.
You could have kept on going.
Well, yeah, that's just it. I gave up before you did, and that's okay. But even when I stopped, I had asked you, just to be clear, was that okay that what I did? And you're like, oh yeah, you could keep going if you want. But at that moment, I was done.
Yeah. That's as someone who does demos at bars for my leather group. One of the things we constantly do is we stop, we pause, we take a little time to make sure the person's okay. If they're enjoying, like I'm usually flogging someone, and I usually will, as I gradually increase, I stop before I go further and go, are you okay? I touch their back to see if there's anything, if I can feel anything that's kind of out of place or whatever. And I kind of ask them, are they okay? Are they doing all right? It's sort of a way to reinforce things. And I agree with you, Chester, that there is sometimes nonverbal feedback that is positive, that says you should keep going, that you can keep going. Usually for me, when I'm flogging someone, if they're sometimes there's like groaning or what have you, or they're leaning back, or you can see things like in their hands that they're really enjoying it or they're liking it, or you can see when it's getting too painful because they'll grip or they'll move a bit out of the way to to get away from the pain. Those are some things that happen to indicate to me as the person flogging them that they may not be okay. And I could stop for a moment and check on them to see if they're okay. It's good to have that constant or semi-constant check-in to see how they're doing, to see if they're okay, because you never know when, and some people don't know. They may not know when they're done. And if they get into a good headspace, yeah. I mean, it sucks for sometimes when you have to break that headspace, but I'd rather break that headspace to check on them than them not give any, like you said, give any feedback, and suddenly we've injured or harmed.
Well, that was one thing that I was going to say that when you were talking there, Damon. In a BDSM setting, one of the tactics that I frequently use is I'll be in a moment where things are kind of calmed down just a little bit, and I'll say, if 10 is where you want to go, where are we now? And so a lot of times people will give me a number, and sometimes I'll think from their body language that we're on like an 8, and then they say 4. I'm like, oh, cool, and then I know how to respond to that. I'm like, they can deal with more than that, and I can pour it on. And sometimes I think they're at like a 2, and they're like 9.5. So it's a pretty easy little check-in tool for that sort of thing. But in not as structured settings, I really feel like the easiest way in just like sexy time animal settings, the easiest way to deal with it is to just kind of ask those teasing questions like, oh yeah, you want my dick in your ass? Yeah, you do, don't you? And just get them to say yes. Yeah, give it to me, So ask those questions. You can be kind of teasing about it, and it's not unsexy time. It seems like it would be awkward to always be checking in, but the thing is there's ways to do it that aren't disruptive to what's going on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say
that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
You go first, Chester.
I was just going to say that's what you just said there, Chess, is a good example of doing a check-in and not breaking sexy time. What you just said. You and I have played a few times, and there are times that I recall in my head where you ask, it's not so much that you're asking me. You want the way that you phrase your statements gives me an opportunity for me to tell you how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. It's not so much a question, and the way that you make your comment to me does not break the scene. Yeah. It does not stop what's going on. You don't stop. I don't stop. But it is a clear track of communication from me to you, telling you that it's okay to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I can't think of what it is exactly that you've said. It's something that I've got to be in the moment for. During that moment, I was like, "Oh, that's a good way to phrase that."
Right. So I wanted to let our whole hosting panel here know that because we're doing this recording live to YouTube, we actually have been getting some feedback, like in real time chat.
Wow.
Two things. Sigma Wolf. First is he says Miss Tammy rocks. So, and for Chess, Sigma Wolf asked. He said, if you could pose this question to Sir Chess, what about a person who gives consent but wants to get intoxicated before?
Okay, so that's something that was part of the gray areas that I listed under this. In certain settings, you can kind of either basically what that amounts to, since once they're intoxicated, they can't really give consent. It's sort of a consensual non-consent scene or an initial consent scene. It really requires a lot of trust between the parties because and it doesn't have to be a BDSM thing at all. I know somebody who is into basically consensually getting roofied. Like that's the deal. That gets him off. There's also people who are into mock rape, where we're talking about, I'm going to say no like I don't want it, but I really do. There are some real gray areas where if there's a significant amount of trust and usually a fairly significant amount of like history between the people so that they really know each other.
Yeah.
And because, if you hand over that consent initially and you all have negotiated away that kind of continual consent requirement, it can be done, but it's dicey. It's a little gray area.
Yeah.
And not for the novice, not for the hey, I'm a casual situation.
Yeah.
You don't expect the dude at the bar to come up and say, hey, how about we go back to my place and I want to get wasted and then I want you to use me however you want. Like, you don't say that to a stranger.
It could happen.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it does happen, and that's the weirdest part by far, is that some people don't probably know what they're saying.
Yeah. But we're talking about...
They may know what they're saying, but they don't know who they're saying it to. That's the bigger issue.
Yeah, and that's problematic big time, so...
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, Chess, you're talking about, the gray areas in terms of, like, the mock rape, the consensual non-consent. And those are, I think, classically kind of BDSM type settings, sessions, scenarios.
Yeah.
I'm interested because you had kind of written out in your thoughts before about no way out scenes, which I think are kind of tied to role play. Does that basically put the responsibility on the Dom in those situations?
So
go ahead.
Let me just be clear. Anytime that there's power exchange and a person who is going to submit hands over power to somebody who is going to be in a dominant role, power doesn't come for free. Power doesn't come with nothing attached. It comes with a commensurate level of responsibility for that person. If they give you control over their ability to move, you have a responsibility, say through rope bondage, that's what they want to do. You have a responsibility to make sure that what you're doing, as tying them up, doesn't harm them. Like, you make sure circulation's good, blah, blah, blah. Responsibility comes along with the power. It's Spider-Man, dude. With great power comes great responsibility. And so if somebody's going to hand over to you their ability to revoke consent, that's fucking enormous. A no way out scene is, we're going to sit here and we're going to draw the sandbox, and here's the boundaries, and then you get to go play and do what you want within that sandbox, and I don't get to say stop. Yes, that's a lot of fucking responsibility. And so it's responsibility to make sure that you're not harming the person, to be able to read them and know when they're done. And that's why I said that in that setting, you need some kind of significant relationship with the person to really be able to understand where they are and do that sort of thing safely. Because otherwise, I said to somebody else earlier today, I was like, keep in mind, kids, pretty much everything we do in BDSM land is just consent away from assault and rape. Like, that's the only thing standing in between them. And so that's why it's so fucking crucial that you make sure that the consent is clear. I've seen people I've seen people who, when they were going to do things like the initial consent scene or other no way out stuff, basically make a video at the beginning. Somebody whips out their phone and says, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? We're going to do this thing. We're just laying it down so that everybody's protected and safe later." And, because if something went horribly wrong, shit could be horribly wrong for everybody.
Wow.
Even worse. And so basically people sit down and they make out a video. "Hey, it's me. We're doing this of our own free will, and this is what we want to do, and this is how it's going to go." So there's a lot more thinking involved, a lot more planning involved in those sort of scenes. You cannot do that sort of shit casually. You just can't.
No.
Right. I think what you're describing is actually, we got further feedback. Sigma Wolf had said, with negotiation. Thanks, sir. I believe the same. I think that's the key piece that we're talking about. And I know this is an LTAK, but I'm trying to walk my brain in two areas about not only in kink, but also just in terms of just intimacy, sex with another person. And I think that's what's missing, is that usually when it's more, to say, animalistic, people don't think about having conversations or negotiating or any of that. They just, no offense, Miss Tammy understands. They, guys just want to get their nut off. And so that's the least of the interest.
The thing is, though, is it's really a situation where, just like you don't think about the thing before you get right in the middle of it. It's like when people are thinking about condom usage. You think about it in advance so that in the heat of the moment, you already know what to do and there doesn't have to be a whole big thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are well versed in how you are going to make sure that what you're doing is consensual and how you're going to elicit that feedback, and you think about it in times when you're not fucking, sporting wood and, dripping hard, then when it gets to be time, there's no disruption, and you do it automatically. You don't have to cook anything up from scratch on the spot, and you're not as tempted to just kind of brush it aside and go ahead without any discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm curious. I want to kind of bring in Ray and Brady as recent title holders, and both of you walk, as does Chess, in both leather and bear. What do you think about the ideas that we're presenting in terms of? I think they're very much in the realm of BDSM, but do you think that they're relatable to the bear community and how we can be better individuals when we have times with other folks?
I kind of think that they should. I've honestly, personally, I've always made the joke of, it seems like in the bear community, a blowjob's like, "Hey, how you doing? I heard your mom's sick." And because
no, I get it.
Awkward.
It's like the bear community is a very and that's one thing I really appreciate a lot about leather events and a lot of bear events that are doing it now is there's most bear runs that I've been to involve food and butt stuff, and every now and then a dance party. And so when I see things that are doing actual classes and an educational aspect of it, I really enjoy that. So I think the bear community is a lot more physical, and because I would say it's definitely a lot more male dominated as opposed to leather spaces, then it tends to be a lot more physical and not a lot of consent's really given from my experiences.
Ray, I think you bring up a good point there because I think what the difference is between a bear event and a leather event is the leather folk have consent built into their brains. When it comes to doing things, they know that consent is a very key aspect of it, whereas most do. Whereas bear events do not. It's not something that is a part of sex play. It's implied. It's just never up in your face like it would be at in a kink setting.
That's accurate. It's very accurate.
I think a good example of this is if I go to a bear bar, even if that bear bar is holding a leather event and I wear my puppy tail, inevitably somebody will grab it 5 or 6 times during the evening. And every single time it pisses me off. But if I'm at a kink event and I'm wearing my tail, no one touches it. And it just comes back to the point of I'm at a kink event. Consent is always at the forefront of our play. Very hyper aware that this person needs to say, yes, I can do these things. Maybe it comes from the hierarchical structure of, sirs and subs and doms and boys and so on and so forth, that we have that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting because I'm going to TBRU this week. And this is a giant bear event. And there's probably going to be a lot of people there that aren't familiar with the leather community. And with me in particular, I've built consent into any kind of conversation that I have. This is sort of going back to your question, Gary. How do you have that conversation with somebody that has, mental disorders or mental health things? And I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. So I have now made sure that whenever I talk to anybody, I let them know, hey, I have these things that happen. Sometimes I don't know if they're going to happen or not. They just happen. Here's my backpack. Here's where the medicine's located. This is what you need to do in the event that it happens. If you're still interested, we can continue. If not, that's fine. And, there have been a few instances where I've brought that up to somebody and they're like, no, I'm not interested anymore because this is too much to deal with. And I can say that it has been in the bear community, but in the leather community, I find it's been a lot different. It's been like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out at TBRU this week for me.
That's really, I want to really give you a shout out for that, for being that self-aware and advocate for yourself. And, in some ways, responsibility is a two-way street. And even if you are the dominant person and you're talking about consent and all that kind of stuff, how wonderful it is for somebody to identify as submissive and be that self-aware to put it up front and to, basically tell somebody how to plan ahead and how to deal with an issue if it were to occur. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Thank you. My mom's a nurse, so it's just like ever since I've been young, it's just like, okay, this is what you need in this kind of situations. Do you have your medical packs with you? All this other stuff. So I'm very much the person.
Nurses rock, that.
Yes, they do. They do.
So says the nurse.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent point to bring up as well. Like, I think that's important for folks to know. We've sort of discussed it in our newer series, Bear, which is the very essential, awareness, series about like what to take, what to plan to do. And one of the things we've talked about is like, if you're going to share a room with people, and whether they be your best friends, your chosen family, or just, a roommate for the weekend, you should let them know about your medical stuff. Here's the medicine that I take, and, and this is this, and who to contact if something were to happen. And I know that maybe people think like, oh, come on, like we're just going for a weekend, it's going to be fun. But you probably would be better to be prepared and to never have something happen than to not prepare at all.
Yep.
And take some poopery with you too. Have you all made this stuff?
I need to buy some because I say to Eric,
oh my God, it's amazing.
It is amazing. I'd never seen it before. And they're like, you can use this if you want to. I'm like, well, what is it? And they're like, well, after you're done taking a shit, just spray.
No, that's backwards. You have to spray
Okay,
it before.
Okay, that's the 4. But I was like, ooh, this
Just a
actually
little
smells really
roommate
good.
etiquette there for you.
And a speaker, just in case.
Oh my god.
Yes. Poor Ray had to listen to Chained to the Rhythm, I think, about every time I took a shit.
I can lip sync it right now.
Oh. Well, if that's the case, take a speaker, put your phone on, speaker all the way, and don't play the same song over and over again. Give them a variety of your playlist.
So I think that's probably going to be a part of a topic of the next Bear episode is your Bear Run playlist. What do you play in your room when you're taking a shit?
Well, not while we were taking a shit, but all weekend long at Claw, I was playing Alaska Thunderfuck's Anus.
Salt and Pepper's Pusher?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh my god. Okay.
So, moving on. Next topic, Gary, is when and how things go wrong. Some of the areas could be the following. We'll get a little bit into them about sexual, or as in penetrative, touching, social, BDSM, and then degrees of transgression. So in terms of the sexual and the penetrative, Chess, you were saying basically the first thing everyone thinks of are like in terms of like rapey things.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about when things go wrong. But you also put in a word which notably Google Docs doesn't like, which is cracking me up because Urban Dictionary doesn't even have this listed.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not sure if you've invented a word, but I think we all understand.
Maybe you need to add it to Urban Dictionary.
To be fair, I have a degree in creative writing, so I'm allowed to make shit up like that. But no, I basically said rapey things, but also humpery. That's your word, humpery. Kissing, genital exposure, bodily fluids, etc. Also things like forced intoxication and roofies. Like we think the rapey stuff, but like even just like rubbing up on people in a pool or groping people, kissing people who don't want to be kissed. And the one that I think sometimes goes unnoticed is exposure. Like exposing yourself to folks who aren't interested. That's an aggressive kind of consent violation.
So one of the things, and this is kind of going to be kind of funny. So we have Jim and I have a mutual acquaintance who, when they are of a certain intoxication, are very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And they like to kiss, like when they say hello or whatever. And their kisses are usually like 9 times out of 10 they're open mouth with tongue like out. Right. And I don't like that. Like when we know you, but like I don't want that. Like no offense, I don't want that from you.
Right.
And it becomes very awkward. But what I've usually done is I turn my head because I know what's coming.
Yep.
Good for me. I know it's coming, but that's not really okay. Like I shouldn't, I don't want that. And it really can, it's just a kiss, but no, if I don't want you to kiss me, I don't want you to kiss me. Like, and it's people like I mentioned before about the hugs. Sometimes some people just don't like to get hugged. It's just the way it is. And if you, And sometimes you can pass, especially a hug. Sometimes you can pass it off like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and that's the one thing I will say. You have to, if you are the person doing the wrong, as it were, apologize or like, "Sorry, I didn't know," and you can stop the moment. And usually that's okay. It'll pass by, and if they react differently and they kind of calm down, then you're good. But I've had the kissing one is a big one for me because I'm a big fan of the kiss, but I've had kissing that just is not pleasant. I don't like drunk kissing.
Right.
Like, if someone's like super intoxicated, it just doesn't work for me.
Right.
And it's not happy and pleasant and like, oh, we're going to do things. It's more sloppy and gross, and I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling good at this moment, so I need it to stop. And I've stopped them most of the time,
Sure.
in nice ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good that you can do that, and I think that the reason that I think like kissing and is such a big deal is because you're right up in somebody's face. Like that's a very intimate distance, and if we're talking about open mouth and tongue things, that's fucking penetrative. Like we're swapping bodily fluids now, and there's a lot of risk in terms of. Relatively, in terms of like you can get people's germs. I mean, this is how kennel cough happens. And sometimes people might not have the best hygiene. They get to that range and they go in for the kiss, and you're just like, yeah, no, I don't want your garlic spaghetti that you had earlier.
Yeah.
And if you keep persisting and trying to force it on me after I've turned my head, that's wrong. It's a problem. And so. But yeah, the other one, and I hate to go back to it, but like the genital exposure one, I've seen some people get at bear runs. People get naked sometimes. It's fine, people are just but it's when like somebody's uncomfortable with someone else's nudity, and the person who's naked goes, "Hey, I'm making this person uncomfortable. I think that's funny. I'm gonna go get my junk right in their face, or on them, or waggle it around in their face, or
oh my god,
here's a lap dance that you didn't ask for, just because I like the way that you're blushing, just because I like the way that you're reacting to it." And that's a power trip gone wrong in a bad way. And so that's why I included like the exposure thing, because that can, even though we don't necessarily think of like, oh, well, if you didn't consent to that, why don't you just turn your head and look away? Well, that's cool until it's being forced on you, even though you're trying to get away. So
yeah.
Other than like the sexual and penetrative stuff, I also included touching, which is more than just, again, I use humpery, I can use the random gropery, but also unwanted huggings, smacking people on the ass, etc. Here's one that kind of came up in the context of puppies a lot, is biting.
Yeah.
Puppies who want to bite and nip and gnaw on people who haven't consented to that sort of behavior.
Yeah.
Hitting. The other one that I've seen at bear runs even is like dunking in the pool. Some people don't want to get dunked in the pool, and some people are like, "Ha ha, you're in the pool, so you're going to get dunked."
Nope. No.
Same.
No. No. Thank you.
Like it.
No. I don't like it either. I don't. Okay. So I can't. Well, no one can breathe underwater, but I literally have to hold my nose. Like I don't have that mechanism where you can, breathe. I can hold the breath out of my nose or water out of my nose. I've never been able to do it, so I always hold my nose when I'm underwater, if I go underwater. If I get dunked, no, I'm done.
Right.
I'm gonna hurt you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Like, cause that is one of my triggers. I have a fear of drowning, and I also have that fear, so I always hold my nose. So if you're playing around and I know ahead of time, and I can do it, yeah. But if you like are coming around and like doing that shit, no, we're done.
Yeah, I had tubes in my ears as a kid, and so anytime I get dumped underwater, it's immediate. They just get clogged with water, and I cannot get it out unless I go get some swimmer's ear, or I have to go to the doctor, and I will get horrible ear infections. So that happened to me at an event in March. I talked with the person afterwards. I told them, do not ever do that again. Ask for my consent if you want to do anything that's in the water. I was very angry about it, and I believe Ray let me use his car to go get some swimmer's ear because I didn't think I'd need any. Yeah. But I took care of it.
Yeah.
Another one is kind of related. Chester mentioned earlier grabbing on people's clothes and gear, and he mentioned his puppy tail, but that includes other stuff like if somebody's wearing a harness, grabbing them by the harness. If somebody's wearing a collar, grabbing them by the collar, which is 9 times.
9 times wrong.
And even though people don't necessarily think of them in terms of like consent related shit because everybody thinks rapey stuff, it's a consent violation and it's not okay. Similarly, like instead of like the hey, somebody's going to expose themselves to you, the guys who are just going to grab your shorts and pants you and like, hey, I'm going to show everybody what you got. That kind of forced exposure. Without talking about it. I mean, it's cool if I'm going to say like, hey, you're a sub that I'm working with and you like to be humiliated and, you're kind of insecure about what you got. So drop your drawer. I'm telling you to fucking here it. I'm going to show you off and you're going to blush. But we've negotiated that.
That's hot.
To give me that kind of control. And that's wildly different from just being like, hey, I think it's going to be funny to pants you in front of everybody. Shpoop. And that's not right.
Yeah. Like the grabbing of like gear and stuff. And on the flip of that, one of my biggest ones is guys in jock straps. And either like grabbing the strap and like snapping it or touching the ass. Yes, I know it's exposed. Yes, I know it's out there, but you don't have my consent to hit that. You literally don't have my consent, and that's another one of my bigger no's. Like, I know that it's out there and it's there, but just because it's there doesn't mean you have the right to hit it or smack it or rub against it or. Yeah.
Well, Damon, if you didn't want it to happen, why did you wear it? You shouldn't have dressed that way unless you wanted it. You were asking for it. I swear, I've heard people say versions of that and not really be listening to themselves and not be hearing the kind of language that we usually use when we're talking about,
women.
Yeah. When we're talking about, what is it? The Carlos Mencia joke is like, maybe you're not a hooker, but you're dressed like one. You're wearing a hooker's uniform. If you weren't dressed that way, why? So they don't hear themselves using effectively the same language, just in this different context. And if they really would pay attention, they'd be like, oh, wait, that's maybe not a thing that I should think and say. Yeah.
And I know one thing for me that I've been noticing a lot that's been happening to me has been people that are into grabbing my beard. And that's, and then the whole like, well, why do you dress like that? I have a beard. I'm not going to shave it just because I don't want some drunk Jessica pulling on it going, oh my God, this feels so great. Oh my God. I'm not going to do it. Or because I have my nipples pierced, people think I'm automatically into like really rough nipple play. And I had one person tug on them not too long ago. I was like, oh, are these wired? And I was like, yeah, to my fist. So
that is the kind of answer that I would give back.
Yeah.
I was at a bear run. Some guy walked up behind me and put his finger down the crack of my ass. And I turned around to him and I said, you do that again, I'm going to break your fingers. And I have no problem saying that kind of stuff to somebody who's going to invade my space in that manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. The nipple thing is a big one. Like some people, I actually went to a class on Claw about this stuff. Is just because someone has like very pronounced nipples or has nipple rings or has, thank you, Tess, or has like, an open shirt or whatever does not give you the right to fuck with their nipples. Some people who like their nipples played with only like this much play. They just want a little taste, a little hug. Some people, yes, they want the big on, like pull on them and try to rip them off kind of shit. But you don't know that without asking.
And just
Well, the
because
thing is,
somebody has
even if-
big nipples doesn't mean that they're wired.
Exactly.
Well, and the thing
Speaking
is
from
even
personal
if they
experience.
do know because they know you and have been around you, that's
Yeah.
still not permission.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've had um, Jim always says like we both get into play. I'll go ahead and say it. And Jim has slightly pronounced nipples. Those are the things that pretty much anytime he goes out to an event, people will latch onto. He's okay with it to a point, but sometimes he has to tell them to stop because one, ow. And after a while, if you've been out for like 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours and someone has pretty much been playing with them the entire time, they're going to get sore and you don't really want someone to touch them.
Right.
Again, consent, ask.
Right. It's interesting. Part of our live feedback we've been getting is so Sigma Wolf said, in the classic words of Miss Tammy, don't be an asshat. Which I think is about, like, think before you execute. You know, whatever it is that you want to do, you're going to take action. Like, Chess, I thought it was important that you said just because you know the person does not mean that it's consent. I think we take for granted, especially with the people we're aware of, that especially if we've had a past experience, that it's okay to do whatever again. But what we lose sight of is that, no, this is a new moment. Like, this is a new reality right here and now from whenever that last happened, be it an hour ago or, you know, a day ago, a month ago, a year ago. I mean, however long, you don't know what's happened to them in that meantime. And what
And
facing.
just because you're flagging red doesn't mean that since I know that you're into fisting, hey, I'm just going to stick my hand up your ass. That's great.
Yeah.
Just because you know that is not permission.
Right.
I would
Knowledge.
at least go
Knowledge.
to the extent of asking them, you know, are you clean enough for me to be doing that?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah. Red hanky humor. All right. So
I think that's more brown hanky humor.
well, I was trying to keep it clean, but thanks, Chester.
I don't think there's any way to keep that clean.
Derail. All right. So also in our comments or live feedback, Sig Wolf had said that Brady rocks. He likes the idea of songs to shit by. Which kind of sounds like we should collect a whole new playlist for everybody, and that way they can just load it to their devices and take it with them wherever they go. But David, this is for you. Sigma Wolf had a question. He said, have you mentioned to the guy that kisses with tongue that that's not cool? And I think what he's trying to say is when they're not drunk, meaning are you able to give them the feedback if they are not intoxicated?
So, no, I will go ahead and answer that. No, we have not yet, but there's a reason for it. And I think a discussion is going to be had. Let me go ahead and rephrase. Like, it's happened a few times recently, and it you know how you have that moment and you kind of get that not cool, and you kind of, you know, they kind of didn't learn from that, so he stopped. But it has come back to the surface recently, so it's now a matter of like, you go, okay, they've learned, they know better, blah blah blah, and now again it's come back up. Old behaviors have come back up. I'll go ahead and put that out there. So I've kind of needed to. I think there's going to be a point where we're going to have this conversation, an actual conversation about it. Right. But again, I agree. I thank you, Sigma, because that is true. Like we've talked about this, like having that initial reaction to something, and sometimes that's not enough. Like, yeah, you can threaten to break, you know, fingers and what have you, but if you actually tell them, you know, like Brady said, like, you know, I'm not going to consent to that. I don't want you to do that again. If you do that again, we're going to have a problem. I would love to kind of have that time with that conversation with that, because that makes more sense to me than if I say, kind of like not really a threat, but just an actual conversation. Sometimes conversations are important because they get, it gets the point home as opposed to the threat. the threat can give the feeling there, obviously, but the conversation can be just as important, if not more so.
Right. And I think part of, what we're also discussing is, it's very awkward to have a moment that a person recognizes that they're having something inflicted upon them that they don't want, and the other party is not recognizing that. And then, how do you deal with that? Because one of the things, like in Chasta's thoughts, was about, degrees of transgression. Not every grab of the ass is sexual assault, but it can be.
Sure.
And communication is a big piece of that. Like, if you don't explain that, hey, that's not okay, then how does the person necessarily know that? Like, or at any moment, let alone that moment in that case.
Yeah. One other thing kind of out of this, things going wrong section that I wanted to particularly draw attention to, because folks don't frequently think of this in terms of like consent violations. But some of the social stuff, folks who have triggers when they're known to you, or if they make them known to you and then they use them against you. People being verbally violent, using slurs or other name calling, other types of bad language, blackmail and public disclosure of secrets. People taking pictures that you didn't authorize and then putting them online, using them to do, basically public humiliation or cause you some other kind of embarrassment. Hey, flashback to a previous episode, stalking. Stalking is a kind of, can be a social kind of consent violation. Basically, stalking, harassment, and other creepery, because I like to stick, humpery and gropery and creepery. So,
it's all the Aries.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
as long as it's not a Jeffrey, or maybe it should be. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think honestly, in this age of cell phones, the one that is going to be the one that I find to be kind of problematic without lots of ill intent involved is the public disclosure of stuff. Like the people who oh, we're having this hot time, I'm going to reach over and grab my phone and flip on the video while we're fucking here in the room. And then later I'm sharing it with other people because I think it's hot. That sort of shit can happen. And a lot of people don't really think about that in terms of consent violation. And especially not initially, because at first it's just for themselves. But then they show somebody and then somebody's like, hey, somebody said you had a really hot video, and then it's around, or then they email it to one person, and then God knows where it goes from there. I mean, because the people who might be receiving it or watching it might be thinking that, hey, you initially consented to that. You were fine with them setting up the video camera. So they don't think anything about it at all either. But ultimately, if you're going to be in a situation with somebody where you might be concerned about that, just be like, hey, I don't really want any of this recorded or pictures taken or things like that. Or sure, you can take a picture, but don't post it anywhere. Or there for a while, because of potential professional issues, I didn't have sex on camera where my face was showing. So things like that, you can kind of limit things that way. But especially with every fucking cell phone being a camera now.
Yeah.
That one is one that I don't think gets as much airtime as it probably should.
Yeah.
Because then somebody gets a hold of it and goes, oh, hey, I know that guy. Tag.
Yeah.
On Facebook somewhere.
Also, check your privacy settings. Don't be like me and post your XTube videos on your friends and family account.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't really link those at all.
Yeah, well,
I only have one account, so.
I think that's very important to bring up because I know there are things that are heat in the moment that are when you're. I've had people that requested like I want to be recorded, and I'm totally cool with that. I'm not a big fan of recording stuff, but he's like, okay, if you want to record it or you want to videotape or you want me to take photos, okay, we can do that, but understand we're doing that, and it'll just go to you, and I am. As long as it stays between us, we're fine. Now, yes, things can get hacked and what have you, and issues can arise, but that's sometimes that's beyond your ability. Like if you agree, you and the person agree to do the photographs or do the video, and you both now have it, and suddenly someone else, like my phone gets stolen or his phone gets stolen or what have you, there's not too much you can do about it at that point. But I agree that doesn't get talked about a lot. One of the things I've always been I don't like is when people do things, and we all know that there, especially at bear runs, there are playrooms or dark rooms or what have you, and we know that things happen in those rooms. The thing that I've disliked is that when people have brought out phones and turned on flashlights, that's not okay. Everyone in that room kind of gives a overall blanket consent that what happens in that room kind of stays in that room. Kind of. I don't know. There's a part of me that kind of feels that that's sort of the way those rooms kind of go. But if someone then takes out a camera or a phone or what have you, you are breaking that room's rules. Even though they may not be posted, it's something that I think is general knowledge. Like no one is really wanting someone to record what's going on in there.
Right. There's a reasonable expectation of anonymity.
Yeah.
Just like we think about reasonable expectation of privacy, there's in those settings, there's you all did the stuff on the bathhouses. There's a reasonable expectation of anonymity, or that whatever happened there stays there, sort of situation.
Uh-huh.
And so violating that is clearly a problem.
Uh-huh.
Could be a consent violation. So we've kind of done to death the stuff about BDSM and how shit can go wrong. Clear stuff where people are ignoring safe words or crossing limits and things of that nature. The one that I thought was worth mentioning here was I think Gary actually mentioned inflicting your kink on folks who aren't really interested. The one that always comes to mind for me was the Puppygate situation a couple of years back when there were the 3 puppies who were chasing around a hotel staff member who was vacuuming the lobby, barking at the vacuum cleaner. And, maybe it was funny for about 3 seconds. But they kept at it, and she was clearly distressed and like trying to get away from them. And they were effectively inflicting their transformative kink on to what amounts to a vanilla mortal. Like she's not part of the kink scene. She just happens to be she's just working there. She's just doing her job. Yeah. And that kind of a transgression is clearly, she didn't have a reasonable expectation of, when I go to vacuum the lobby at work today, I'm going to get basically savaged and harassed and threatened by 3 large men who are dressed as puppies barking at me. That's not. It really like the dog barking at the vacuum cleaner. It was a hilarious concept for about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But clearly it crossed the line as soon as she signaled through her body language and trying to run the fuck away that it wasn't okay. Like she was like saying, "Whoa, this is not an okay interaction," and they just kept on because they thought it was hilarious. So that kind of inflicting of your kink on other folks, no bueno.
Yeah. There are times. I know we kind of talked about it, but there are times to me where I don't like saying blanket consent because I don't like that term. I like the what we said before about like the dark rooms. Like there's a certain amount of I'll just use the word respect. There's a certain amount of we know we're all kinky individuals and we all have our different kinks and we're all in this space together. Therefore, you're not necessarily imposing, but when you have outside people, like at a hotel, and you have workers that are actually there doing their job. They're not a part of the event. They're just there working. Bar staff that are not a part of the event. That's not okay to put anything of your kink or your fetish or your what have you onto them. They are just there to do their job, and they are being respectful by not pointing and gawking and making a big deal about, oh my God, this guy's in a puppy mask. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, there are things that are I hate to say it, should be understood. There should be a level of understanding because we're all human beings, and you should understand that what I do to this person is not the same thing I can do to this person.
Word.
If anybody hears oinking, Hammy just came in my room, and so if you hear oinking, it's because Hammy's in here. It's not me making. There he goes. It's not me making pig noises. Okay, just so you know.
It's just coming from your end, from an actual pig.
Right. So for those that are not familiar in our viewing or listening audience for the episode, Ms. Tammy literally has a pig as a pet in her home, and his name is Hammy, and he's adorable.
What do you want? I have some Hershey's Kisses on my desk, and that's what he's doing. He's oinking around because he wants a... No!
Way to break the tension.
Speaking of breaking, actually, I think what we're going to do is we're going to, for our audio podcast, we're actually going to take a break. And do a split because we have more stuff we want to talk about and get through definitely, but we know we don't want this to be like the show that never ends, so to speak. Is that all right with you, Jeff, as our producer?
Yeah, sure. Skip cooldown for now.
Yeah, we'll do that in the next segment, whatever thing.
Cool. So since this is going to be 2 weeks, let's do our regular wrap up stuff. There's plenty of ways to contact us if you have any questions, comments, concerns for anybody here in the show. Just email at cubsoutloud at gmail.com. Visit our website where you can see the video, see all the show notes, links that we provide at cubsoutloud.com. Visit our store at zazzle.com/cubsoutloud. Help upgrade our recording rig at gofundme.com/colstream. During the show, we got a $200 donation. Thank you very much. Leave us a sexy voicemail at 361-265-8255 or 361-COL-TAK, or any other thing. It doesn't have to necessarily be sexy. Follow us on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Google+, YouTube at Cubs Out Loud. Actually, subscribe to us on YouTube, and you'll get notifications when we go live, so you can see the shows essentially a week in advance, or two. You can also go to thebearunderground.net where you can join the Cubs Out Loud Entourage group. That's the official Bear website of Cubs Out Loud. Rate us over on iTunes. Subscribe to us on Google Play Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio. You can find me anywhere on the internet as Box Tech Box, Puppy Box, Cub Box, something or other.
Theater Cub 79 or pup_umbra. You know where to find me.
You can find me on Tumblr, Twitter under the name The Pup Up There, or various bear dating sites across the net under the name Pup Shutter or Cupcake76.
And of course, you can find me as GearBear73 pretty much anywhere on the web. Chess, if they were going to try to reach out and get in touch with you.
I'm Fox Bear, pretty much anywhere that you're going to find me. So it's no big deal.
Miss Tammy?
I am Miss Tammy, MSTAMMY, MSTANNKY@AOL.com. Or on FetLife, if you happen to use that, Ms. Tammy, MSTAMMY, because I'm creative like that.
Ray?
You can find me at sirsouthern.comfort.tumblr.com. You can email me at raythebootblack@gmail.com, or you can find me at any White Castle.
You said what?
And you have a pig living in your house.
Did you hear him wink at you?
I did.
He just said, kiss my ass.
Brady, where can people get in touch with you if they want to online?
You can find me on any social media, either under the name Pup Tibbers or Ragnarok Cub.
Okay, great. So that's going to wrap up COL416, and then we're actually going to keep going for video, and we'll go into 417 for audio. So
first let's wrap this up. Say goodnight, everybody, for this episode. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one, y'all.
I will have you know that there is a car dealership, a used car dealership in the Louisville area that uses the same guitar solo riff as the music for their fucking commercial. They came on the other night, and I was like, what the fuck is Cubs Out Loud doing on TV? And, like, then I was like, it's some fucking carnival barker of a motherfucker on there trying to sell me a used car. And I'm like, that's weird.
Well, it's because they stole it from GarageBand.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. It's technically owned by Apple. We just use it, and they don't
It's royalty
say
free.
anything about it. Yeah.
There you go.
Anyways, I'm going to stop streaming for this time, and we'll see you in a few.